So this is where we begin. So welcome to the project management class. And then in this particular class today, we'll be dealing with building the foundation of what we'll be doing in the next few weeks. So the question now is, what is the foundation? What are the few things you need to understand about the project management examination, the PMP exam? Now, there are a few things. There are two basic things. We have the PMBOK, that is the PMBOK, as it's normally called. And we also have the training, the exam, content. Now, those two things seems related, but they are not. They are, at least officially, they are not dependent on each other. Normally we are supposed to have it such that it is the content of the PMBOK that determines what the exam that is set and what is asked and what people are tested by. But now it's been clarified that they are not. And that's why we need to look at them independently. We need to look at them one after the other. So we are going to be looking at what is required, now the whole process of getting the exam done from the very beginning to the end. And then we're also going to be looking at what are you expected to learn, what are you expected to know, so that we know where to focus attention on and what you need not waste your time on. Can you still hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So now let's start from the very beginning. Okay, getting the PMV credentials done is not something that is hard. It's not hard. We just need to take the right step and follow it through. So the first thing is, just like I advised the other day, to go register an account on pmi.org, which I believe you've done.
Yes.
Okay. So the next thing after that is to check the document I sent to you, fill it, replace the information there with yours, forward it back to me, let me check it through, and then I'll give you a go ahead to fill it up on your account profile on pmi.org. So what does that push you to? Now that pushes you to a point where you are requesting, you are submitting your application for the PMP exam. Now, after filling it, either you submit it or not, there's another very important thing, and that's settling your membership. Of course, it is important that, of course, we can pay for the membership and the exam fee together by waiting for everything towards the end and then submitting the payments at that particular point. But then what I'm saying is, if we do membership first, like after opening this PMI account, the next one will have been just go settle your membership, buy membership and all of that. Now, the reason for that is simple. Now, after you have done paid membership, there are a few things that are released to you. You have the official PMBOK, which is hard to share these days because, PMI have started locking the PMBOK with the password of the person's account. So if you are going to share your PMBOK with somebody, you are also going to give them the password to your account because the PDF is locked with your account password. So that has really reduced the way people share PMBOK online, and then has really helped drive revenue for PMI also in that regard. So what am I saying? Once we get the PMBOK, the pay membership done, now you get your official PMBOK that you can use, which is very important. You get ID cards, you get all of those license number and all of those things. Now, and of course, it gives you, at the time you are paying for exam, also give you some little discounts on the exam fee. But most importantly, for the sake of this course, for the sake of this training, the most important thing of all, everything listed, that the advantages of getting your membership done early is that PMBOK, so that, you have a document to work with, you have a document to scale through, you have a document to check through everything that is being discussed, or everything that, every time you need to check again, you don't just have this training slide alone, but you also have your PMBOK to check through. Now, as much as I'm going to be pushing some document also to you to help deepen your knowledge in what we are doing. But then PM bulk, that particular PM bulk is the most important of them all. I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Okay. So that said, once that is done, you submit your application, and then after submitting your application, one or two things can happen. You can either, okay, let's say one or three things. You can either get accepted, get audited, or get rejected. Really, I've only heard of application rejected. It has not happened to any of my clients. But then you can either get accepted or get audited. So the process of auditing is not something big. Now they're just asking you to provide proof for everything you said you did or you had. So now, and then the audit process is always random. So we are still yet to understand what triggers that audit in people's documents, but it is really very random and it's not so common. I mean, in 20, you might just have to audit one or two in 20. So the percentage of audit is low. And when they request for it, there's no big deal. We submit everything. It's just to keep checkmating people that we still do auditing, and you must make sure that what you are telling us, you can provide proof for them if we ask for them. It is just that simple. Reminder to the whole ecosystem to know that people will still have that in mind and not just dump things on the PMI application, knowing that nobody's going to, nobody's going to check them through or try to prove them. So if you get audited, we submit the information in there. They will send you a form. They will ask you to send it to people that can validate the project you said you've done. So they are supposed to open the form, fill it, and then seal it without getting it back to you and send it to PMI directly. They are supposed to do a scan of all the certificates you said you have, and then that's it. And once it gets to them, you mail it to them. And once it gets to them, check it, and then they're just gonna either decide to accept the application or reject it outrightly. So that's the process with that. Once the application is accepted, then the next thing will be that you can now schedule your exam. So today there are several ways to even do exam. So hypothetically, we have three ways. We have using.
I have a question. When you submit the application, average of how many days do they get back to you?
An average of 10 working days. Mostly less than that anyway.
Okay.
So, but depending on the volume, but from experience, it's always less than that 10 days.
Okay.
So, like I was saying, where did I?
I think after the submission and they have passed, the next thing to do.
Talking about 3 ways you can write your exam. Yes. So I said hypothetically you have 3 ways. You can do CBT in a proprietary center. You can do paper-based tests, which I don't think is currently available for Nigeria anymore. No, because at some point they canceled CBT for us, and all we had was PBT because of malpractices, everywhere. So they had to cancel CBT, and we had to do paper and pencil tests. That was cheaper actually, but then, so after a few years, they restored the CBT, and then I think they took the PBT again. So, but for some other countries, they have the options of PBT, CBT, and then the CBT also have 2 options. You can either choose to do it at the Prometheus Center, or for one reason or the other, decide to do it in your own house or in your own, controlled environment. A minute, please.
Okay.
Okay, so or you can just do it in your own controlled environment, which also is possible, because we had people lodge complaint that okay, the reason they could not pass the exam was because the CBT center had different issue, and they had to ask PMI to allow them redo the exam and do it in their own controlled environment. Actually, that option came up during COVID. They had to keep exam going, and then people could not really gather, no matter how little. So they had to give that option. So it was during COVID that they tested the option of people doing the exam in their own house, in their own controlled environment. But that also has its own processes. So whichever way you want to do it, it's the idea is to make sure that the major things, which is getting the knowledge and getting the speed, is done. And then whatever option you want to use, make sure that you've tested you've had scenarios factoring those things also in. So when we get to that point, we will discuss better. So after the exam is done, now the beauty of CBT is after the exam is done, you know immediately what the result is going to be, because unlike the PBT that would have to wait, like we are waiting for jam result or WAEC result, for CBT it's instant. You know what your fate is. You know if it's a pass or a fail, and that's how you are going to see a pass. No, there's not like percentage. There's not like 90% or 80%. No, it's either a pass or a fail. And then the next you probably see is that they will rate you by domain. They rate you and say you are proficient, averagely proficient, moderately proficient, and all of that. That's all. And that's the end of the exam. And what you'll be required to do, after that is to keep your certification going by recertification, which has easier way to get done anyway. But then that's just it. So that said, we need to look at a few things, and then I would like to quickly share another file so that we can just quickly do that. Okay, so this is the last examination content outline. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is the last examination content outline released by PMI. So let me quickly rush to the okay. Now, before now, let me create a simple history to this thing. Before now, what would normally run? What the PMI exam, and then the PMP content is always around. We talk about the 10 knowledge areas and the 5 processes. I don't know if you knew about that.
Yes, I've heard of that.
You said?
I've heard of that before.
Okay. So, we started with around 9 knowledge areas, and then at some point, the 10th knowledge area was added, and then different removing and addition, tweaking to the processes. So we were revolving around the 5 processes of project, which are simple processes: the initiating, the planning, the executing, the monitoring and controlling, and the closing. And then we're revolving around the 10 knowledge areas, which are the scope management, cost management, schedule management, quality, resources management, stakeholder management, procurement management, risk management. Yes, that's all. So we're revolving around all of integration management. So we're revolving around those things, and then everything about the content were around, the 5 processes and the 10 knowledge areas. So 5 processes were the major things, and then the 10 knowledge areas were the, things that, make the whole thing bulkier. So focus was on 5 processes. In fact, then if you write the exam, you are going to be graded on the 5 processes. Like you are going to see initiating, proficient, planning, averagely proficient, and like that, and like that. But then year in, year out, every 4 years, PMI try to review their PMBOK from PMBOK 4 to PMBOK 5 to PMBOK 6 and all of that. And then in the middle of this whole thing, they've had amendments, they've had additions, rearrangement, and all of that. So, because of the fast pace, things are changing now. They had to keep changing things, keep adding things, keep rearranging things until the last PMBOK that was not an arrangement. It was not an addition, or so to say. It was a total change. But before then, they added what we call the Agile Guide to the existing PMBOK, which means that the PMI methodology of doing projects has now moved from the waterfall system to an agile kind of system, which is what the world demand, the profession demand these days. And then, that was the middle ground until this new PMBOK that now focuses basically on agile. And after that was done, am I communicating that? Are you getting?
Yes, I'm with you.
And until recently that the PMBOK is now totally different. Now, before now, the new PMBOK always replaces the last one. Before now, new always replace the old. But before this new, we will normally have PMBOK that is of 500, 450, 470 pages before now. And then the last one we had was a combination of the normal project management body of knowledge, PMBOK, and Agile Guide, which is around 120 something, 170 something pages. So roughly we have a textbook of around 650, 700 pages. And then now we have a PMBOK that is less than 250 pages. So for someone that I've seen that will say, wow, PMI exam just got easier and simpler. Yes, but no. And the reason for that yes is because, yes, the PMBOK has reduced in terms of length, because that number of pages, is just one major discouragement to a lot of people. A lot of people tell you, I cannot finish it. There's no way I can finish that kind of textbook. And I understand. But now that it is around less than 250 pages, you feel like, oh, it is small, we can, get it done. But then the information that is not going out as much as I think it's supposed to be going out is the fact that the new PMBOK is not a replacement for the last one. Unlike what we always add, that the new PMBOK replaced the last. The new PMBOK was clearly stated to be an addition to the last.
That's PMBOK 7.
Yes.
It's an addition to PMBOK 6.
So what we are looking at now is that it's not saying that focus on the last PMBOK and write your exam. Yes, if you have knowledge of PMBOK, of the last PMBOK, but if you don't, you have to go and pick it from the last PMBOK and then put the icing on it with the new PMBOK. I just wanted to clear that first before we go into it, because we are going to start from the last. So even though PMI does not currently use processes and knowledge areas anymore, we are going to go pick it up from there. Like I always love to say, my goal and my assignment in this class is really not to teach you the process of project management. You probably know that, or you're probably in the industry, you probably understand what you're doing on the field. My goal is to help you understand PMI methodology to the point that you understand and think the way the people that set the exam are thinking. And also to understand how to answer some of their scenario questions. Because ultimately, the goal is for you to pass the exam. And then in my little experience in this industry, at least I've been training people on project management since 2013. And in my experience, I found out that people that, get to fail this exam more, if 10 people fail this exam, 7 out of them are people with huge experience in the industry already. I'm talking about people that have spent 10 years, 5 years, no, 7 years, 15 years practicing project management at one level or the other. And the people that pass this exam, most are young professional, or even people that are still seeking for an opportunity in the project management industry. So the question is, what can we deduce from that? And then the first thing that I'm able to do from that is, it's easy to build on a blank slate. I don't know if you get my point.
Yes, I'm with you.
So since people that are passing the exam are more of people that have not yet gathered so much experience in the industry, they look more like a blank slate, and we can imprint whatever we want on them. And people that have experience yet but are not ready to let go of the experience or allow this experience to conflict the methodology of PMI will not also have it, easy. So I said that to say this. Whatever you know about project management methodology before now, whatever you've done that has worked for you, both on the field and in everywhere. Now, for the sake of this exam, I want you to put them aside first, and then learn what PMI wants you to learn. So relearn it and make it stick, at least to the day you write your exam. And once you're done with your exam, you can now choose if you want to continue with the methodology, or you want to go back to your own experience, or you want to match the two. That's even if there are so much difference anyway, or you want to match the two. So this last thing I said is very important, because it will determine everything. And why am I saying this? On a practical level, I've had people say this a lot. Every answer, every question that you come across in the PMP exam has 4 options. Are you following me?
I'm with you.
So it has been said that 2 options are outrightly wrong and 2 options are outrightly right. So out of the 2 right answer, one is your own way, the other is PMI's way. Or better put, one is your own methodology and the other is PMI's methodology. Or one is a general practice and the other is standard practice. I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to get to.
Yes, I get you.
So you can now see that you can read and study and do everything you need to do, and still eventually pick the wrong option if you are not, surgical enough and precise enough to know what exactly PMI wants.
Okay.
I'm not saying this to scare you at all. I'm just
No,
trying
no,
to be everything.
I'm following you. Yes.
So that said, let's talk about the exam. The exam is a 200 question exam, of which you'll be graded on around 175 and not 200, because 25 of it are pretest questions. So what are pretest questions? Please, if this meeting ends, just join again, please.
Okay.
So what are pretest questions? Pretest questions are
Okay.
subject.
I think if we are just 2, it should last for a long while. Maybe it's because we are 3. Usually that's my experience too.
Okay, let me drop off this other one.
Okay.
It's been long I've used Zoom anyway. I'm used to Google Meet these days. And it's because of the ease of setting it and just clicking on the link. I'm not having to generate link every time.
Yes, I understand.
So I said that you are okay. So the 25 questions are more of pretest questions, where you get to, the truth is you can't even tell the difference. When you're writing the exam, you can't tell what is a pretest question and what you are being graded on. So you have to approach every question as if you are going to be graded on, you are going to grade on those questions. But then from the PMI side, 25 questions are survey questions, are pretest questions, questions that give them feedback around things in different countries, different areas, so that they can, push forward and they can do things better. So it serves as a feedback. So you have 4 hours for the 200 question. And if we calculate that, so 4 hours is around 240 minutes. So that's 240 minutes. And then you have 240 minutes for 200 questions. So averagely, you have 1 minute, 20 seconds for each question. And most of these questions, if not all, now before now, it used to be 60% scenario and 40% direct. But now we have more of, I think 90% scenario questions. So scenario questions that will take your time, you will take time to read all the story. And then at some point, you might even get confused and ask yourself, so what's even the question in this whole story like this? So, so you have 1 minute to do all of that, to read the question and pick the correct option. Because it's one thing to understand what to do, it's another thing to finish it on time. Because once that, 240 minutes is exhausted, the exam ends.
Okay.
And that's why it's not only okay to understand and get the questions right, it's also important to know how to speed up and be fast with it.
Okay.
And those are the two things we're going to be learning. We're going to be learning both understanding and speed, because by the time we start writing the short test that I said, you will have 10 minutes for 10 questions, which means you have to get them done. You have to get all the 10 questions done in 10 minutes.
Okay.
So that said, let's now get into the content of the exam. Like I said, we've moved from 5 processes and 10 knowledge areas to a simple method, which we now call domain, task, and enablers. So we have 3 domains as I speak. We have the people, the process, and the business environment. So let me just scroll a little bit and so I'm going to also send you this document so that you can also be able to check through these things yourself. So the people document carries 42% of the test, processes carry 50% of the test, and business environment carries 8% of the test. That's how the questions come in. So what is domain? Domain define high-level knowledge area that is essential to the practice of the project management. So what we used to call knowledge area is now replaced by what we call domain. Do you understand?
Yes.
So what is the task? The task is what is the responsibility of the project manager, in each domain, in each knowledge area. So I'll be using the word interchangeably so that you can sync very well. And then the third thing, which is enabler, is the illustrative example of the work associated to the task. So please note that enabler are not meant to be exhaustive list, but rather offer a few examples to help demonstrate what the task encompasses. So let's get into the first domain and the things that we need to do. So for the people domain, the first task is to manage conflict. Then we have task 2, which is lead a team. And then under managing conflict, you see things like interpret the source and stage of conflict, analyze the context of conflict, evaluate and recommend.
You are not changing your slide, right?
I have.
Oh, I'm still on that third. I can't see.
You can't see domain 1.
I'm still there. Yeah, you are. For me, yeah, you are still on the third slide.
What's happening? Because I have actually changed.
Maybe you should reshare, or maybe it's not the one you shared. I'm looking at.
Okay, let me just check it again. Oh, okay, wait. Okay,
Okay.
what can you see now?
Yes, I can see manage conflicts.
Okay, sorry, I was sharing the wrong page. Okay, so the first task here is to manage conflicts. The second task here is to lead a team. Then third, we have support team performance. Then empower team members and stakeholders. Now, one thing I want you to understand from this is that all of the tasks and the actions below them, that is under them, that we need to get done. For example, if you look at lead a team, it says that set clear vision and mission, support diversity, value servant leadership, determine an appropriate leadership style, that is e.g. directive, collaborative, and all of those things. These are things that we would normally discuss, even if we're using the PMP 6, because they all come under either stakeholder management or resource management.
Okay.
So the next one says empower team and stakeholders, ensure team member and stakeholder are adequately trained, which is still under people, is still under resource management. So I'm just trying to marry the old system to the new system. But let me even ask, how familiar are you with the old system?
So I've been through the trainings, although I don't think I know, I can recall all of the details of the knowledge areas, although I know most of them, but by heart, I don't think I can call it out straight away now.
But you still remember some
I
of.
have an understanding of the rudiments, the explanations, I think. Yes.
Okay, good. That's all that I need. Because it won't make any sense if I'm trying to marry the old to the new, if you can't remember anything from the old.
Yeah.
So the task 5 here is to ensure team members and stakeholders adequately trained. The next one is build a team. And then you see address and remove impeding obstacles, negotiation. Task 9, collaborate and with stakeholder. Task 10, build shared understanding. 11, engage and support virtual team. Define ground rule and all of those things. Now, I'm going through all of this because all of this under people eventually